Hello, I'm Leah Crawford, one of the Opening Doors authors. In this lesson, Symbol Source, we're going to explore how symbols carry meaning, how you as a reader need to explore those symbols to unleash the meaning in a text. This question will act as our guide. We'll read a poem with a simple but captivating story. We'll keep pausing to explore the symbols, and our aim is to understand how a simple story develops complex meanings through its symbolism. Let's get started. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head. These are our opening lines. Simple event so far, but two deep symbol sources already. Let's take them one by one. The hazel wood. There is a hazel tree. If you haven't ever walked through any, you'll notice something different about its trunk. Rather than one solid trunk, you've got all of those whippy strands. That's called a coppiced trunk, and that's been managed. This forest has been managed by human beings. The trunk keeps getting chopped away so that those strands grow, lots and lots of them, because then it is more useful. Now, this will be an ancient medieval wood that was managed by people because they needed the fruits of the forest. They needed these trees. They were useful, these strands. You could cut them back, weave them into thatched roofs, into walls that then you'd build your mud on top of. You could build fences from them, furniture. So, hazel is ancient, is useful. Sustaining, the hazel nut you've probably heard of, for squirrels, for wildlife, for human beings, for birds to nest in, sustaining for the wildlife. But also the hazel tree had magical resonances as well. They were believed to ward off evil spirits. Those wand-like strands were believed to be good for water divining, to find water underground, and they were believed to be life-giving, fertility symbol. They were also believed, the bark was believed to be medicinal and used by apothecaries. So look at the layers of meaning just by this wood being a hazel wood. Because a fire was in my head. What could it mean to have a fire in your head? How do you think that speaker in the poem might be feeling? Now, the beauty of a symbol, that symbol of fire, is it can mean several different things all at once. So challenge yourself to think of at least 3 things that fire in the head might be suggesting about their thoughts and their feelings. Now let's try to link our 2 symbol sources together. We have that hazel wood with all of its many symbolic resonances, and the fire in the head, which hopefully you've come up with lots of possibilities as to what that might mean, how the speaker might be feeling. If you draw those together, can you use that to help you predict what might happen in the rest of this narrative poem, this setting, with that feeling? Let's keep reading. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream, and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. I'd like you to pause and just clarify for yourself what has happened there. There are some simple events, but there is certainly an air of mystery in those events as well. Now that we've clarified what's happened, let's dive into our symbol sources, and we'll start quite close up. What kind of meanings might be suggested within the context of this story just through words, the symbolism of words? So we're going to start with a hazel wand and the moth-like stars. You might like to think to yourself, first of all, before I explore with you, why a hazel wand, not just a strand or a branch? And why are the stars described as moth-like? How does that develop their meaning? Let's go into this together. Well, yes, a hazel strand, a hazel rod, it's being used in real terms as a fishing rod. So he could have said a hazel rod, and that's very real and very useful. But that word wand makes something very real, very useful, very everyday, become something magical. How about those moth-like stars? Well, they're flickering out. So when the stars are disappearing, does this mean we're in a breaking dawn? The stars are starting to fade away, we can't see them. But making them flicker like moths makes the stars seem alive in the sky. Strange, unearthly presence there hanging in the sky. So if you like what I've done there with those two phrases, why not have a go with the glimmering girl who fades in the brightening air? Have a think to yourself, why is she glimmering? What might that suggest? It could be several different things. And the fact that she calls his name but then fades. So we started quite close up there, just on the single phrases, and tried to dive into symbolic resonances. Let's go one step further, step back from this and see if we can see symbol trails emerging through the first two stanzas of this narrative poem. Now, here's a challenge. If you're feeling brave, there's the bare poem. There are two stanzas there. Find your own trails of symbols. Or if you'd like to see an example first, keep playing. So here, I've highlighted, with the help of a Year 6 pupil, a whole strand, a whole trail of images that link together. Can you see what the link is? We'll see what she said. The symbol that permeates this whole poem is light. The fire in his head may be a deep love or passion the speaker feels for the glimmering girl. The two stanzas occur at dawn as the stars flicker out, and the air at the end of that second stanza there brightens. Perhaps this girl is in his imagination and fades as he realises she is only in his head. So is the poem very much about imagination, about what he can conjure in his mind, what is real but also what is unreal and imagined. Thank you to that Year 6 pupil from Coastlands Primary School in Pembrokeshire. So you could do the same for other symbol pathways. You could look at symbols of natural beauty, of the magical or uncanny, unexplainable, or images of what is real but also possibly dreamlike. You could take a coloured highlighter and try to thread through those symbols and then stand back and think, what kind of meaning do they create for you in what is otherwise a simple story? Here's the revelation of the poem's title, The Song of Wandering Aengus by William Butler Yeats. Now, Aengus was a deity or god in Celtic Irish folklore. Yeats was an Irish poet, very proud of his roots, and he believed these stories, these folklore stories, carried a deep wisdom with them. Aengus appeared in many stories, One of the most famous being about a maiden, like this poem, who appears to him in his dreams, not in the forest, but each time he reaches for her, she disappears away from him. Now, is this poem just a retelling of the Aengus myth? Not quite. Yeats is transforming it. Look what happens when we move into the third stanza. There's a time shift. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find. There's an invitation. You're going to have a go at a taster draft to complete this final stanza of the poem, when that speaker who entered the woods with the fire in his head, who saw the appearance of the glimmering girl, now he's older, years later. What is it he wishes to find? Here are three possible challenges. Challenge one is the story. What do you think he hopes to find? What's his quest? Challenge two, because this is the centre of our lesson here, can you continue one or more of those symbol source trails that we have begun to sense through the first two stanzas? Third layer of challenge, it's your choice if you want to do this, is to continue this sense of song. It is the song of Wandering Aengus. Where does the sense of song come from? When I read it, it was beautifully easy for me to read aloud those 4 heavy beats per line. It's got a beautiful regular rhythm and it has a rhyme scheme, which we haven't talked a lot about, but you could go back, look at the ends of lines and see if you can work it out and see if you wish to continue that. So pause the video here, have a go at that taster draft, complete the poem for yourself. Here are some taster drafts written collaboratively by pupils working together at Coastlands Primary School. I'd like to pause the video, read those to yourselves, see if you think they link, they cohere with the previous two stanzas. One in sense of our speaker in the poem and his story. Does that continue well? But also have these pupils continued the symbol sources and deepened their meaning through the choices they've made here. As I read this, I'd like you to see if there are changes in my tone and my mood as I read it, because I think they're in the poetry and I'm going to try to bring them aloud. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. I would encourage you to read that aloud yourselves and see where your voice takes you. Your changes in tone and mood the same as mine, or would you read that differently? Now, our big opening doors question. We've built up to this. We're looking at single symbols, symbol trails. Now let's look at the whole poem. How do Yeats's symbol trails support your understanding of the poem? You bring your mind and your understanding to make meaning in this poem. And these radial questions here, if you feel you need them, might help you dive into that big question of making meaning. So pause, go back to that complete poem, explore some of those radial questions to allow you to enter that big question of just what this poem means to you through its symbol sources. Now, Yeats, in this one poem, I think, is opening doors to huge ideas that ripple through lots of art and music and literature that we're in here. So I'm just going to open the door for you and let you know you've been exploring ideas here that have been resonant and important for generations. Lyrical, song-like, pastoral, exploring and celebrating a natural world and its effect on us as humans. Admitting that we can't explain everything. There are forces in the world of magic and mysticism that we cannot fully understand. And romanticism, this sense that a younger, simpler, innocent hopefulness, even as the man is older, wandering through his hollow and hilly lands, he can still hold on to that youthful hope. Now, your confidence as a reader, your knowledge, your interest in how symbols work will grow, will deepen as you read more. So we always have in our Opening Doors books a list of link reading. Go further, read more. Here are possibilities here, old and modern writers with all sorts of backgrounds there that can help you build your confidence with symbol sorcery. And the final challenge would be for you could go back to your taster draft if you like and develop that further, or for you to write your own symbolic poetry. Now, what I've put there around the big question are some of the symbol sources that we find in the Song of Wandering Aengus. You could take one of those, two of those, and choose to develop that within your own narrative poem. And we always love to see the outcomes of your journeys through literature and your own experiments with writing. Crown House publishers, our wonderful publishers, can host pupil work. There's a link there. You can see some of the work that's come out of our Opening Doors to a Richer English Curriculum for ages 10 to 13, where you will find the Fire in Your Head unit. And ask an adult in your life to email that work to us so that we can get Crown House to pop it up there. Good luck with symbol sorcery.